Ruger LCR series. All right, so starting with the good. The Ruger LCR and LCRX guns have a lot of different caliber options. You got 22 long rifle, 22 Magnum, 327 Magnum, 38 Special, 9mm, and 357 Magnum. So you can shoot centerfire, semi-automatic cartridges, as well as your traditional rimmed revolver cartridges. The 327 Magnum is especially versatile because it gives you a lot of different power and recoil options all within the same gun. You can shoot the heavy 327 Magnum, which is gonna have a lot of recoil and a lot more power, or you can shoot the 32 H&R Magnum, which is kind of a go-between. And then you've got the 32 Smith & Wesson Long, which has very low recoil, feels like a 22, but it is, how do I put this? It is more reliable than your standard rimfire cartridges are gonna be. You're also gonna get a little bit heavier bullet, and a lot of these rounds like wad cutters and semi-wad cutters get pretty good penetration out of the 32 Smith & Wesson Long. And then you've got your 32 ACP, which in a pinch you could fire, but that's only a semi-rimmed cartridge, so it'll fire in the gun, but you're gonna have to use a pocket knife or something to pry those rounds out of the gun. So we took the gun out and we loaded it with 2 rounds of 327 Magnum, 2 rounds of 32 H&R Magnum, and then 2 rounds of 32 Smith & Wesson Long. And the recoil difference on those was pretty drastic. The 327 Magnum was definitely the heaviest, followed close by the 32 H&R. And then far behind that, like a 22, was the 32 Smith & Wesson Long. So a shooter can have different options for training or whatever their recoil sensitivity may be. So the grip options from the factory are pretty good on the Ruger LCR. They all come with Hogue Tamer grips. And the factory options are 2 varieties. This Hogue Tamer grip without finger grooves, and then the one they've got here with the finger grooves. So your smaller, shorter 2-inch, 1.87 barrels, gonna have the shorter grip with the finger grooves, and then your longer 3-inch are gonna come factory with these without the finger grooves. These grips all do a really good job of maintaining recoil control. They make these cartridges and these lightweight guns fairly pleasant to shoot. If you throw something like 320 or 357 Magnum or even the 327 Magnum, these can be some stout little guns, but the grips make it a lot easier to shoot them. Now, if you're gonna run these grips, I suggest wrapping them in goon tape. You're gonna have to reapply it fairly often, which is a downside, but this material is a lot more comfortable to carry against the body. It also helps you get your hand in there a little bit quicker for a good draw. The rubber that the Hogues come with can feel a little bit bad when they're against your skin. So if you're sensitive to that sort of thing, keep that in mind. Now, one thing I really like about the Ruger LCR is it's got a lot of aftermarket grip options. We only have a few of them up here, but as far as laser grips, you can get this Hogue laser grip, which is basically a tamer with a laser unit in it. And then Crimson Trace makes this longer laser grip. They used to make this shorter one, but it has since been discontinued. And the longer one is just, I don't really see the place for it. I wish they'd still make the shorter one. It's a lot better for concealed carry. Downside all these laser grips we've seen is in full light, they're pretty much useless. It's very hard to pick up that laser and see it. Now, if you're shooting in low light, they do have some advantages. This is also a weird little grip they made, which is the Ergo grip. I personally don't care for it. Some people love it. Majority of people I've seen don't seem to really care for it, but it's a cheap grip to try out if you think it might help you. So this Rogers Super Grip is also another really popular option right now. Now it's got these little nubs on the side of the grip, which will affect holster fit. So you'll need to file those down if you want to run them in most holsters. Now, these grips are a hard plastic, so you could stipple it, change out the texture, do a lot with these, but they're not gonna be great on anything besides probably the Smith & Wesson 32 Longs and the 22 caliber LCRs. I wouldn't run these on a full power 38. Definitely doable, but most shooters are gonna become a little bit recoil sensitive with those versus the Tamers. Now there's also some wood options from Hogue, I believe, as well as Eagle. I think VZ actually does not make G10 grips, but Hogue does. So lots of options out there as far as grips. So reliability on these guns is pretty darn good as long as you keep them clean. Like any gun, if they get too dirty, they're gonna have a failure. And I've got a 22 long rifle, actually this gun right here with the Rogers grip, that I took way too far, didn't clean it, and what happened was it ended up actually damaging the cylinder latch spring inside the gun. So that is something you do not want to see happen with your gun, so I suggest keeping them clean. All you've really got to do is run a bore snake or a bore brush through the cylinders, through the barrel, keep that cleaned out, put a little lube on it, and then get a brush and make sure you stroke the area between the star and the cylinder, also the forcing cone and the back of the breech face. All that stuff really helps keep the gun running a little bit better. Apply a little lube and you're good to go. Now let's go and actually shoot these guns. So the LCR comes in the LCR and LCRX. The LCR is a double action only trigger, whereas the LCRX is a double action, single action gun. So you can fire it by pulling the hammer back and it will cock the hammer and move the trigger back, giving you a shorter trigger pull, or you can fire it using the power of the trigger to cock the hammer back. Now, personally, I believe single action on a revolver like this is kind of pointless. Double action makes a lot more sense, and I'm about to show you guys why. So I've got two targets up here about 7 yards away, and I'm going to fire this using single action only, and then I'm gonna fire another 5 rounds using double action only on 2 different targets to show you kind of the speed and the results of the accuracy. Let's go. So that's one thing that can happen is the rounds in this LCR will stick a little bit. And that's one thing I'm not the happiest about with this gun. You can try to keep it clean. It still sticks a little bit more than some of my other guns. So this is the double action target. Maybe I keyholed one of those. I don't know what happened there. Maybe I dropped a round out when I was loading it. But you can see, really good group right there. Similar size group, but definitely a lot slower than using this gun in double action only. So I would definitely suggest, guys, use the gun in double action only. Okay, so I have 4 rounds of 327 Magnum in this. And I just want to show you the recoil difference between this gun and the 32 Smith & Wesson Long, as well as just the regular 38 Special. So as you guys can see, there was quite a bit of muzzle flip on that, and it was pretty stout. Now, here we've got the 38 Special, and this 3-inch barrel does help with the recoil a little bit. I don't have my 38 LCR out here today, but it's very manageable. So as you guys can see, that gun did not move nearly as much. Now this is also a 327 Magnum, but in it I have 32 Smith & Wesson Long wad cutters. So that gun, as you guys can see, recoils like a 22. And that's what's great about the 327 Magnum is you've got a variety of different powers and ammo. So if you have an experienced shooter versus an inexperienced shooter, somebody that's weaker, somebody that's stronger, if you have arthritis maybe, this is a great option for you. Now, as far as the Ruger LCR platform itself, it's available in 357 Magnum, and that might make sense for you if you want to shoot 38s to get a slightly lower recoiling gun at the cost of a little bit of extra weight. But personally, I wouldn't fire that powerful of a cartridge in a gun this small and this light. It's just not going to be fun to shoot. But know the option is out there. So since we're still on the good of this segment, we're going to talk a little bit about the trigger. So the trigger on these, especially in double action, is just really smooth. It's a longer trigger pull, but for a factory gun, they all are very consistent. Actually, the older manufacturer guns have some really nice triggers, but the newer ones, they're acceptable. You know, it really allows you just to fire this gun pretty darn quick, especially with the tamer grips. Gets the recoil. Now we're going to transition to the bad part of this review, where we start talking about the bad things. And unfortunately, one of those is the trigger. And the problem with that is it's very easy to short stroke this trigger. A lot of people have an issue with that, especially people that shoot semi-autos a lot and are used to shorter resetting triggers and riding that reset. If you shoot double action, single actions, or like the HK-LEM and you do not ride the reset, then you're not gonna have any problem with these. And if you train to it, you won't have problems. But if you're not somebody that trains a lot and you just want a revolver to have to carry in very special situations, you're not gonna shoot a lot, I'd go with something like a Smith & Wesson J-frame or a Taurus 856 over the Ruger LCR. So the sights on these guns are not the best. They are revolvers, and for revolvers, they're a little bit better than everything else out there, which is why I'm telling you this is still part of the bad and not part of the ugly category. So the rear sight on these is pretty much just a basic trough, and it's not good, it sucks. But the front sight does have some options. They're pinned in place, so it's fairly easy to drive out the pin and replace the front sight. Now, XS makes a lot of different front sight options for this gun. I know TrueGlow makes a fiber optic, but you're going to have to pay close attention to see whether or not it will work with the caliber that you're running in the gun. The 327 is different than, say, the 38s and the 357 Magnums, so you're going to want to make sure that there's a sight offering you can be happy with that'll work with the caliber of gun you choose. So the rear sight on the 3-inch model is a lot better than the shorty guns. It's going to be a lot easier for you to use, and it more resembles a semi-automatic pistol sight. Is it the best sight out there? No, but it's definitely better. But there's some issues with this 3-inch gun, which we'll cover in a little bit, that make it bad for concealed carry. So if you're looking to get the gun for that, you might want to go with one of these 2-inch options. So another bad point on this is how the guns carry. So they actually carry pretty darn well, but they don't carry as well as other similarly sized revolvers. And the reason for this is the distance from the top strap down to the bottom of the trigger guard is much wider, like over a 1/4 inch wider on the Ruger LCR. And it's even more extreme on the 3-inch LCR-X guns. This top strap adds a lot of distance that have to be overcome, and that's just a wider holster and gun setup inside your pants. So it is less comfortable than other options. Now, these guns in the non-Magnum variants, I'd still say are light enough to carry if you're running, if you're doing any kind of very active exercise without a belt. So if you're just gonna throw your gym shorts on and throw the gun in, they work pretty darn well. I personally tend to favor the lighter, 38 and 22 variants when I'm using them like that. But you can throw the 327 in and it'll still work if you're lounging around the house or whatnot. But if you're gonna carry it all day long, I definitely suggest, wearing it with jeans and a belt, shorts and a belt. Makes a lot more sense. At the end of the day, these guns conceal really well with the right holster. The grips, as I mentioned earlier, the rubber material can grab your shirt if you don't throw goon tape on top of it, and that's gonna depend on your clothing material. A lot depends on you whether or not it'll rub you or not. Just depends on your desired level of comfort and what you find annoying. So another bad point of the Ruger LCR is I've not found a suitable speed loader that is non-mechanical, meaning one that's spring-loaded, they'll just pop those rounds in there. The Safariland Comp 1 didn't work for me, nor did the Jet loader. And the Speed Bees loaders, while they work, I don't trust the rounds not to fall out. So that's just really not an option. The best option I've found for these is going to be the 5-star speed loaders. These work pretty well. I like the direction the knob turns as opposed to the HKS style speed loaders. These, if you're fine with the direction the knobs turn, these are probably actually a little better because they hold the rounds tighter. But that's gonna be pretty much where your limited options go as far as speed loaders. There's speed strips and devices like that you can get, but if you want loaders, you're really gonna be limited to the 5-star speed loader system and pretty much all calibers. So now is the point we get to the ugly. The finish, guys. Like this gun, so it's honestly an attractive gun, but if you're looking at it in terms of like old classic revolvers, it's ugly. Don't really care for it. It doesn't have that old school charm that you would hope from revolvers, but as far as a new school revolver, I think it is attractive. And there really isn't any very ugly portions on this gun as far as the gun as a whole. A lot of good, definitely some bad, but overall, I'm a fan of the Ruger LCR. I carry these from time to time, and I hope this video has helped you guys out. And remember, guys, take charge and carry with confidence.